Hi, it's Dre Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today we answer the question, what is the biggest mistake that retirees make and how do we solve it? Today I'm going to give you 10 strategies to make sure that you do not make the number one financial mistake that most retirees make. And it really comes down to building flexibility into their retirement plan. What I mean is most of the time we'll put a plan together and it is like best case scenario. It's everything goes perfectly. The amount that I invest gives me this amazing return. I'm healthy. The spouse is healthy. We travel all over the world. Everything goes exactly as we plan, but you have to be able to build adaptability into your plan to truly ensure that you retire successfully. Step number one to make sure that you manage financial change in your retirement plan is to make sure that you embrace flexibility. And what I mean by that is you probably heard the Dwight Eisenhower quote where he said, plans are nothing, planning is everything. And more or less what he's saying is sure, you have a plan in place, but most things don't go to plan, right? That's basically saying that if everything's exactly as we thought it was on the day that we thought it, and then it's true in 5, 10, 15 years from now, then everything's going to be great. But the reality is things change. Things change significantly. Some things we can account for, like a recession every 10 years, that's kind of common if you really think about it. Other things that are really hard, which is like COVID-19 and a pandemic. There are certain things that we just could not plan for no matter what happened, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a plan. It just means that we embrace flexibility when it comes to implementing our plan. And that leads you nicely into step two, which is you have to have an emergency fund. Now, some people don't want to call it an emergency fund, and I'm cool with that. You can call it whatever fund you want. You can call it the maintain my retirement fund, whatever you want to call it. We have to have some money that is liquid in cash. If everything goes kaput, where the stock market is down, my rental properties are down, my business is down, I need to have some money that's just available in cash. And I'll put a link to a video where I talk about the 5 best retirement withdrawal strategies. But one of the ones I like is called the bucket strategy. And it basically is I have to have a year to 2 years of my salary in pretty liquid assets because that's what I'm going to live off of. And then whatever happens, if I need a year or two to recover from that, right? If my business during COVID isn't doing well, I need the ability to fund my lifestyle for at least a year or two. So that way, when everything reopens, my business is still there. There were thousands of businesses that were not prepared for COVID and they closed to never open again. You want to be able to ensure that you manage that financial change very well when it comes to your retirement. By having this emergency fund or the maintain my retirement fund, you will know that no matter what happens, I have 2 years of runway. I can wait for the stock market to come back. I can wait for my rental properties to come back. I can wait for my business to come back. I don't have to make decisions where I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place of selling my business for less than it's worth, or I'm selling my stocks during the down market. So I'm locking in these losses. And that's where most people mess up. They don't have the ability to wait for their assets to regain their value. And as a result, they end up locking in losses. And that often ends up taking 5, 10, even 15 years off of your overall retirement funding. And none of us want to run out of money in retirement. Step number three is you have to adjust your financial plan as life circumstances change. The plan was made based on a certain life that you had at that particular time. A life event could include a kid going to college, a change in your career that alters your income, things with marriage and divorce, buying a home, moving, thinking about retiring early, any sort of a loss of a loved one that kind of has you really thinking. Naturally, any health challenges that you have to overcome, maybe you have to see a physical therapist or you have to go to a doctor for routine treatment. These are life events that you want to be able to say, hey, let's see how this impacts my plan. I want to make sure that I'm still good. Some of you are going to say, I'm trying to move up in my career. I'm trying to make a career change. So I'm going to go back to school or pursue a certification. These new expenses would be considered life events as well. Naturally, any legal matters, if someone is suing you or you're suing someone or you get an inheritance, all of these are reasons that you should revisit your plan. How can I best allocate my resources to adjust for this change in my financial situation so that I can adapt and thrive? Step four is you want to develop a contingency plan for any unforeseen events. If there could be an early death or someone could have dementia or Alzheimer's, someone can have a long-term care event. There are so many things that can alter the success of our retirement plan. If you plan on working until 60 and for some reason the company lets you go at 55, what does that do to your plan? Do you have to go back to work or could we adjust the plan and it still can work? Sometimes the unforeseen event could be related to an illness. Your plan was to work till 80, you felt good, you felt vibrant, you loved the work that you did, and then something happened that required you or your spouse to retire early. There are many times where the healthy spouse has to retire to take care of the unhealthy spouse, where the plan was for both of us to work till 70, somebody got sick at like 60, and you tried to juggle both, where you took care of the sick spouse and you continued going to work to generate the income. But the burden got so heavy, it was so taxing that the money didn't seem like it was worth it. you were very tired and you couldn't focus at work. And it always seemed like you had to leave early or had to take days off suddenly because the spouse that was dealing with the health issues, it was a little bit uncontrollable. You didn't really know, you didn't have a lot of runway to know what was happening. And so a lot of times you just get tired. And so you retire a little bit early. And that happens to a lot of people. You want to have some sort of a plan in place for that. Insurance is a great approach for most of this. If you're worried about dying too early, then you would get life insurance. If you're worried about living too long, then maybe you research an annuity. If you're worried about getting sick, where 70% of people over 65 have a long-term care event, well, then you may want to explore long-term care insurance. If you have a great job that pays a great salary and it's very technical, but you're worried about your sharpness fading, then you may want to invest in disability insurance. Because if something happens to you where you can't generate that income, so I had someone who was an engineer and he had like a stroke or something and he could not perform his work anymore. And, he was making $150,000 a year and he could not do that job anymore. Well, his retirement plan was built on him being able to work for another 15 years. He was in his early 40s when this happened. And because he had disability insurance, he was able to maintain a significant portion of his income, even though he couldn't do the same work anymore. And I've seen the opposite happen where you stop working because something happens to you. And it's not life insurance because nobody died. It's just that you're alive and you can't quite function the same way. Well, if you don't have disability insurance, then you may find yourself getting the Social Security supplemental, which is not very much when you look at the disability benefit that they give out. And so as a result, it significantly alters your retirement plan because you're not making anything that you used to be making. Most contingency plans require one of two choices. One is it's self-funding. So you put the money aside. You say, okay, this is going to happen, Dre. This is going to cost on average this much. Boom. I put the money there. We're ready to go. I'm not going to touch it. It's for that bucket. The other choice is using insurance where you say, you know what, Dre, I don't want to put my money. I want to pay the monthly premiums. And then at least I hedge against the likelihood of this happening, but I don't want to allocate so much of my retirement fund. The worst approach you can do is pretend like nothing is going to happen, that everything is going to be perfect, because if any one of these events I mentioned happen, it can completely blow up your retirement plan and eliminate 10 to 20 years of your retirement income. Number five is you want to reevaluate your retirement plan as you get closer to retirement. Now, for most people, that's usually 5 years out. A lot of people feel really good about 5 years out. Let's see where I'm at. I said that I was going to pay off the house. Is my house paid off? I said I was going to downsize. Do I still want to do that? I said that my kids were going to be self-sufficient. Are they? You just want to be able to look at the plan, see how we're doing, and do we need to make any changes? 5 years out is a good spot because for many people, when you have 5 years, you can decide whether or not you need to adjust anything. I can double down where I'm looking at my plan and I'm looking at the income and I'm not allocating it the right way, but I have the ability to still achieve the plan. So because I have the awareness brought to me, I can now invest my money properly to make sure I still retire in 5 years. For others of you, you may look at it and say, yeah, 5 years isn't going to work. I think I have to work an additional year or two to make this work, which is fine because now we're at a point where we can at least make that decision. Where, you know what, Dre, I think I could do it, but let's go ahead and make that plan B, where I'll work an additional 2 years if I need to, but I'm going to work as if I'm retiring in those 5 years. You want to be able to reevaluate all of your goals. Or do you still want to travel or do you want to be home? Did you maybe get some traveling in early and you just don't feel that interested in it anymore? Or do you feel even stronger about it? Maybe your kids moved a little further than you thought and they have grandkids and you kind of want to live a little closer. Maybe you're tired of all the people and you want to kind of get off and get your own island. There are so many things that could change. And you and I both know that we make plans with the best of intentions. But if I asked you, hey, what was important to you 10 years ago? You would probably say something that's not very important to you right now. Right? That's just a part of growth and wisdom. As we become aware of more things, it adjusts our filter of what's important to us. And when you're 5 years from retirement, it's a really good time to just say, is everything that I thought was important still important to me? Did these life events change things? Has the situation at my job changed to the point that I don't want to work 5 more years? I want to retire tomorrow. And is it possible to put a plan together where I can retire tomorrow? Maybe it is, but who knows? We can at least put a plan together where maybe you can retire a year to 3 years earlier than you intended. Maybe we could put a plan together where you maybe work a little bit longer and not in that particular job, but maybe you can find a new place where you make less, but it's a lot less stress, and maybe you work a little bit longer. There are so many levers that you guys have to pull to be able to put your retirement plan together, but most people overlook the idea of being flexible. And that's why that was step one, embrace flexibility. As things change, all we're going to do is look at the numbers. We're going to look at the goal and are we on track or not? If we're off track, where can we make a change? If we're on track, let's go get some ice cream and celebrate. Real quick, I just want to jump in and say thank you for watching this video. If you are finding value, go ahead and like and subscribe so you can continue receiving valuable insights on how to solve generational wealth through strategic retirement planning. Number six is you want to seek professional advice if you have significant changes in your overall plan. If you had a set it and forget it plan where you had some index funds and you're investing your money and you had everything set up, because I give you the information, you could definitely do it on your own. But something changed, and the change was big, and it has a huge financial impact. It may be worth investing the time and talking to a professional, even if you just paid for a couple hours of their time, ask them the questions, got a second opinion to see if it makes sense, and then you still implement the strategy on your own. You just want to be able to tap into the wisdom of someone who has seen these situations play out multiple times to where they can let you know, hey, look, this is what worked, this is what hasn't, this is what some common mistakes are, this is what I would be concerned about, and this is how I would do it. I just find that it's very valuable. If you look at wisdom, and you guys know I'm big on wisdom, that's why obviously the company's named Obsidian Wisdom. If you look at athletes like Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, you can tell that their dad had the wisdom of being an NFL quarterback, and he instilled that wisdom in his kids. How else could he create two first round Hall of Fame quarterbacks? If you look at Denzel Washington and his son is doing movies. Well, how did he figure that out? Well, obviously, he tapped into the wisdom of Denzel. Now, you may say it's connections, and I would say that that's wisdom. He knew who to talk to, who to hire, what the roles were, what schools and education he needed. He knew everything because he went through it himself. If you look at Will Smith, he had his kids in the entertainment industry. Now, granted, you may say, well, I don't want his advice on family. That's probably a fair statement. But when it comes to getting into the entertainment industry, you probably can't argue that he has a path. He has his kids in movies and he has his kid making platinum songs. And we don't only have to focus on famous people. The experiences or wisdom that we have, we pass it on to our kids. The Pentagon did a study and it said like 90% of the people who join the military have a family member that's been in the military. When you look at poverty, you find that poverty is generational, that people learn that by living a certain lifestyle and then they pass it on to their kids the same way. Obesity or being lawyers or doctors, you find that there's someone in the family that had the wisdom and the understanding and the experience where they pass that on to the next ones. And for me, financial planning is the same way. If you find a trustworthy fiduciary fee-only financial planner who specializes in generational wealth and retirement planning, well, then they have so much experience because that's their wheelhouse. And they can share all of these success principles that they have learned to where your wisdom matches the most successful experiences that they had. Number seven is you want to maintain your insurance coverage to protect you against any unforeseen financial catastrophe. Right. At the end of the day, that's what insurance is. It is something that we would consider a financial catastrophe if it happened, but the insurance company says it's not very likely to happen. And as a result, we will offer you that peace of mind by you paying us a monthly premium. It most likely won't happen, but if it did, it would completely destroy your retirement plan. And as a result, you are okay paying that monthly premium, whether that's long-term care, because on average it's about $30,000 to $40,000 a year when it comes to a long-term care issue. And on average, it's about 3 years that we need long-term care. So you would want to have somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000 set aside for long-term care. If you don't want to deal with that financial catastrophe, if it was to happen, you can see if you qualify for long-term care. For most people, it makes sense to explore that option somewhere around 45 to 55. It becomes much more expensive when you get over 60. When you're 60, most insurance companies are like, okay, this risk is pretty high. Also, I only have 5 years to get the premium before something may happen. Now, some people ask me, okay, Dre, what do you think about burial insurance? And for those that don't know, burial insurance is basically like a very small whole life policy. Whole life just means it's a permanent insurance policy. So if you make the payment every month, you will have that whole life for the rest of your life. And you know that your heirs will have $10,000 to $20,000 to be able to pay for your funeral expenses. Well, the reason I generally will tell people, I don't really like the burial policy is because what I just told you. Insurance is not meant for small things like $10,000 to $20,000. Insurance is meant for financial catastrophe, right? Like we're talking if I got in a car accident, that's going to be tens of thousands of dollars, and it could be millions of dollars if you drove your car into a Lamborghini dealership and hit like six cars, right? Like it could be really expensive. When it comes to homeowners insurance, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that would be a financial catastrophe if you had to pay to replace your home on your own. And same with your life insurance, your income earning potential is literally worth millions of dollars. So when you're talking about $10,000 to $20,000, to me, that is not a financial catastrophe. In fact, you could just put the $100 a month in a CD and probably have that $10,000 that you want set aside. Right, that's me personally. I know some people are going to say, no, I love burial policies, but I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of people where they're paying $100 a month for like $20,000 of coverage and they have three kids. And I'm telling them, your family's going to have much more problems than just figuring out whether they can afford to bury you. Hey, they can cremate you for $1,000 and be on their way. But how are they going to pay the mortgage? How are they going to pay for the kids' school and put food on the table? How are they going to pay the car note and all these other bills? So I always tell people, you want to make sure your income earning potential is what is covered. I'd rather make sure that your family is okay if something happens to you than making sure that you can be buried. Number 8 on our list is you want to continuously update your budget and your financial record. So there's a couple things. Number one is if you got like a new house or a new job, then we should naturally be updating our financial record. If you paid off any debt, we should be updating our financial records. If we have a change in our family and something happens to a spouse and we get divorced or they pass, if something happens to our kid and we don't talk to them anymore or they pass, we want to be able to update our financial records. You just want to be able to look back at the plan, I would say at least once a year, where you say, okay, how are we living? Are we spending more or are we spending less? Are we still on track with what we said was going to be our budget? Are we decreasing the debt like we said we were? You just want to be able to look at the financial records and see if you're still on track. I told you guys, when I used to work in investment bank or even when I managed the pricing department, we would have a plan where we said we need to generate $100 million every single month. And we would create daily reports, weekly reports, monthly reports, quarterly reports to see if we were tracking on plan, to see if we needed to make any changes, to see where the hole in the bucket was so that we could patch it. By looking at the numbers, by having access to your financial records, it's going to help you make an informed, intelligent decision. And then you may be able to catch the problem before it even happens, where you're able to notice that, hey, we're spending a little bit more here than we used to. We need to nip that a little bit. Or, hey, we got rid of that debt slightly quicker than we thought. Where do you want to allocate that extra money? And by making a conscious and informed decision, you're often able to surpass whatever your retirement plan was because you're constantly looking at the numbers. What ends up happening is that we have like a drift where we slightly are fading from the line that we set for ourselves. But the only way we notice that we're slowly drifting away is by saying, oh, that's what the plan was, and I'm not following the plan. Is this plan still good for us, or should we make a change to it? We don't want to pretend that we're on this plan because it says that we're going to hit the goal, but we're not actually investing that way. We're not actually spending that way. What would our plan look like if we put in the real numbers? And when you have that information, you have that discussion, it changes the way you spend your money. Most people walk around saying, I don't know where the money goes each month, but you could know. And if we do know, then we can fix the problem. Now, if you're married to have a spouse and the plan requires both of your input, then I would say you want to meet probably monthly, maybe quarterly, you can get away with it, but you probably want to meet more frequently than annually. I would say monthly works really well. It doesn't have to be a long meeting. You just simply like, hey, look, this is what we spent last month. This is what we said we'd spend. This is where the money went. Are we cool with that? Do we need to make any changes? Is there anything that you're concerned about? And we can kind of go from there just each month. Now, granted, if you feel like nothing's changing, right, you did maybe 5, 6 months and everything's kind of on track, go ahead and do quarterly meetings. The feedback loop just has to be more frequent than the day you retire, because that's what happens. We put a plan together at 40, we retire at 60, and we haven't looked at the plan since then, and it's completely off. Like if you've ever written your goals down for a year and then maybe 8 months into it, you kind of looked at it and you're like, oh my gosh, those are great goals that I made. I wish I looked at this card earlier in the year so that I could have stuck to the plan. Maybe I'm just telling myself because I've done that. I have in November looked and found my goal sheet and I was like, oh my goodness, this was amazing. I wish I would have looked at this every day because I know I would have achieved these goals if I did. But maybe it's just me. Maybe that doesn't happen to you, but maybe it's just me. But I know that looking at my plan gives me the awareness to be able to make adjustments on a more regular and consistent basis. Number 9 is you want to keep track of financial trends, market developments, and tax changes. There will be external factors that impact your retirement plan. Where the Fed is increasing or decreasing rates, that's going to impact your investments. If people feel the government is going to shut down, or there's war going on, or inflation is really high, I mean, there could be so many things that would impact your overall retirement plan. And you want to be able to just have a general understanding of what's going on in the market. Not that you need to be out there day trading and trying to figure everything out ahead of time, but just having a general understanding. And the way I normally tell people is, I would say just follow the Fed when they kind of come out each month and you get the job report. And they normally give you other information where you could just see what's going on in the overall market. And then people will let you know the sentiment and where they think things are going. Do they see a recession looming? Do they see rates going higher? Just to give you an overall idea. By understanding the market and knowing that if you're in a recession, eventually you're going to hit the floor and then you're going to hit the growth and then eventually it's going to peak off and then it's going to go back down. We have so many economic cycles that if you understand the cycles and the trends and what markets do well, then just by knowing the direction that we're going, you can protect your overall retirement plan. Where to invest your money during times of high inflation, you know where to invest your money during a recession, and you're able to make the adjustments as the market changes. The way I often describe it to people is every time there's a recession, we know that a lot of people lose a lot of money, but we also know that there are people who will make more money than they've ever made. And the opposite is also true during times of economic growth. We know that a lot of people make a bunch of money, but we also know there will be a bunch of people who lose everything during times of economic growth. Well, the only difference is how prepared they were. Did they have a plan in place to ensure that they would be able to succeed in those different environments? Now, I did a video recently where I talk about 10 investment tips, and I'll link you to that video where we talk about some things that you want to do to prepare ahead of time. But remember, the number one mistake retirees make is they're not prepared for financial change. So you want to be plugged into these external factors because they will impact your overall retirement success. And number 10 is you want to embrace changes as opportunities for growth, learning, and new financial strategies. As change happens, it opens new opportunities for those who are prepared. So Bill Ackerman is a great example of that. He was very confident that COVID was going to tank the market, and so he shorted the US stock market. And he ended up turning, I think it was like $17 million into $2 billion in less than a year. So he was prepared for that opportunity and he took advantage of it. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and short stocks. No, I'm not telling you to go out there and short stocks. That is a very advanced investment strategy that the average person should not participate in. But does it show that sometimes when opportunities present themselves, those who are prepared can take advantage of it? And I would say yes. You find that we have new things happening all the time. You're currently in the AI revolution. If you stick your head in the sand and pretend like AI is going to go away, well, that's not reasonable. First of all, it's already been here. It's just now accessible to the average person. Back in the 90s, when supercomputers were beating us in chess, right, that was a form of AI. It's just now available to everybody. So that is going to open opportunities for people that weren't there before. You find that to be consistent with our economy over time. When the smartphone was first invented, that opened up so many opportunities for people selling screen protectors and the little gadgets where your phone has a little sticky thing on the back. Or because people paid so much more for their cell phones, now it opened the opportunity to pay someone to fix your cell phone. Where the phone used to be like, $50. So why would you pay someone to fix it? You would just buy a new phone. But now if your phone's $1,000, well, you would pay someone $100 to fix your phone. So it opened up completely new opportunities for those who were prepared. And AI is going to have that same effect today. And there's going to be something else in the next 5 years, something else in the next 10 years, where it opens up these opportunities where if we're prepared and ready to take advantage of them, we can. Because if we're not ready to take advantage of the opportunity, it may be the opportunity that ends our retirement success. Think of something like globalization. How did that impact the US? It impacted us very negatively because the wages you get paid in the US are higher than the wages that you could pay someone in China or India or places in Africa. And as a result, we started losing in globalization. Automation is the same idea where some low skilled workers are being phased out, where people are doing self checkouts or they're going through drive throughs where they do the ordering themselves. They never talk to a person. There are things that are happening in our economy that are changing the way we interact with each other and the world. And by keeping your ear to the ground just once a month, like I mentioned, nothing crazy. I'm not asking you to day trade, but just by staying in tune, staying in touch with what's going on in the economy, you can then prepare a retirement plan that excels in all of these markets so that you're not caught holding the bag, but you get to ride the wave with the best of them.